Okay, Will, we are here. We're doing it live.
Good
This is
morning.
Good morning, GM, Bitcoin enjoyers all across the world. This is Blockspace Bytes. Every Monday, we're going to keep it tight 10 minutes, talk about what has happened in the world of Blockspace and what is to come. We review the content, high points, podcasts we got coming out, writing, research, and plug the events we do. What's up, Will? How you doing this morning?
Man, I am just alive this morning. We had a great event here on Saturday for the Halving Party for the Denver Bit Devs. Blockspace/Mining Pod hosted that along with the Denver Bit Devs. We easily had 250 people show up. I kind of think it might have even been higher, but we didn't even keep track. I think the coolest part was like people stayed. So we had 6 hours of content and people stayed for like at least 2 to 3 hours and just hung out, had like tacos and beer. And there was like some awesome Bitcoin talks from tons of people in the Denver space. And then we had like vendors like Casa, Compass, Luxor, tons of different vendors. So really cool event. I'm still excited from that. So that was a little bit of an undertaking and slightly stressful. So yeah, I'm good though. Went to a
Yeah,
Rockies game yesterday. There's 10 fans
yeah,
in the whole ballpark, but it's Monday. Time to talk about Bitcoin. How about you? How you doing?
yeah. I'm fantastic. Last week I interviewed Casey Rodmore. Actually, let's just do this. Let's play. Let's do the clip of the week. Um, we Casey had a great clip of the week talking about his greatest fears for runes and ordinals in general. So
be kind of okay. It wouldn't be good if the software just stagnated, but if it did, as long as the protocol didn't go through any like bad changes, that would kind of be fine. That's the thing that most worries me about this whole enterprise is just stupid changes being made to the protocol. Like my doomsday scenario for runes is that some exchange or some group or whatever proposes a bad idea, like you should be able to have runes execute. You should be able to put Ethereum smart contracts in an inscription and then have runes execute those EVM smart contracts. And then they convince like enough people that it's a good idea that somebody like hacks Ord or whatever and then does this. And then we have this just like shitty, stupid protocol. Or I think it could be a lot simpler. Like I think you could probably come up with examples that aren't so dramatic that would be just kind of like dumb extensions to the protocol. And that is the thing that I really don't want to happen. Like as long as the core protocol is okay, and as long as everybody sort of agrees on the core protocol and it doesn't do anything stupid, that's good. I've kind of like done my job.
yeah, so we'll be doing we got a bunch of great bangers from that particular interview. That's my favorite clip of the week. Obviously, I got to interview Casey. And it's been a runes dominant narrative this week. Speaking of runes, we do have to shout out this great newsletter from this past week. Actually, we got pods next. I'm sorry. We gotta review the
Can't
podcast.
skip the order that you set.
Yeah, I know. I set this order in stone. Okay, so we had a few podcasts this week. We had gosh, I mean, we did a lot this week. We had the Elizabeth Warren, our mining pools, political targets. Um, this was a Bitcoin, this is a mining pod like roundup. We had the what you should know about BitVM, and this was me and post. I'm sorry, this was 2 weeks ago. Shoot, let's skip forwards. Rich, what should you know about the Bitcoin halving? This was you, Will. Walk me through this one.
Yeah, so you were on it as well. And then Matt Kimmel from CoinShares went through all the things that are happening with the Bitcoin halving ahead of the Bitcoin halving. So this was like 1 day, 2 days before the Bitcoin halving, and we talked about like all the data that we know about. So obviously we're on the other side of that, and so you might look at this and be like, don't listen to it because we already have the data. But I do think there's some good nuggets in there going into that. And then we also did some other stuff about like what the picture for the network looked like. We talked about Riot with their 1 gigawatt Corsicana site coming up, among other things. So some nuggets in there as well. We'll be posting clips on the Twitter page.
Yeah, and your mic is stuttering a bit, Will. So I'll take this next one. We had Bitcoin Season 2 Part 2 with Alex B. Now on on the payroll at Bitcoin Magazine. But this was probably one of the more popular interviews that we've had. Again, Gwart, the rising show in the world of Bitcoin right now, I had too long of a conversation with Alex to make into one pod. Had to split it out into two. If you missed the first one, it's really good. They just talk a lot about the state of the network and various scaling solutions, feasibility. But part two is out. I've only made it partway through. I am taking notes. This is a good one to check out. I guess without further ado, Will's going to dip and come back. We did some writing this week as well. I think my favorite writing this week was from last Monday. How the Ordinals 2023 DGods Mint might predict halving block chaos. This was pre the halving. So if you read this, you may have found my favorite line in this, where I go and I say, where we lay out kind of a case. Where we lay out a case for like how do we predict the halving block and identify a lower bound of 32.85 Bitcoin, which was unbelievably prescient. The real fees coming in for the block 8 to 40,000 was about 37 Bitcoin. So we're going to pat ourselves on the back for this one. Make sure you subscribe to the newsletter, blockspace.media/newsletter. And then we had a great guest post this morning from Zach Voll over at Botanics on Bitcoin halvings past and present. You know, if you've been, if this is your first halving, then it behoove you to go back and review where we've come from. I think this is great. He talks to like the high points and the events that were happening. What was happening in Bitcoin at the time of each halving, 2012, 16, and 2020. So like what companies were founded, what were the narratives that year. Right now, we are in the fifth halving epoch. The main company founded, obviously, Blockspace Media. So, Will, do we have any more interesting writing that we did?
How's this audio sound now? Sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay, interrupt me if not. Other writing pieces, I think go back to DeGod's piece that you wrote last week was very interesting. The biggest things I would jump over to is the charts.
Yes, we've got some charts that we included in these newsletters. We like to include a chart in the newsletter each time, just to kind of jog your memory or something relevant. This is one which we talk about on the various like pods that we do. This is on Marathon, which takes non-standard transactions for a premium and pockets a premium. And we've covered this on the mining pod a couple times, both the roundup and in the newsletter. But we can see here that Marathon, especially this past 2 weeks, has pocketed fees significantly above the industry median. So that's very much on our radar right now, as they're a publicly traded company. And I don't know if this particular data point is sunk in. Will, what are your thoughts on this?
Wasn't there recently an out-of-band transaction that was paid in the second block?
Yes, that was a couple days ago. And that was because I talked to one of the guys running the Slipstream product over at Marathon. That was because they were transitioning the mechanism for Slipstream. So they wanted to take that payment, guarantee that would happen. But the payment has happened on chain. That's a little bit different. So in the world of out-of-band payments, you can have it. Typically, out-of-band is a very broad definition here, saying anything that's not attached to the transaction itself. But in this case, it was on chain. So it was an out-of-band but on-chain payment. And then we also had this chart from CoinShares, Matt Kimmel over there. Bitcoin daily total transaction fees versus average transaction fee. Will, you got thoughts about this one?
Yeah, let me just look at the waves of speculation that we see build up for Bitcoin. I think that's the most interesting thing to me. We have different token standards launched that cause acute demand for block space, which bids up transaction fees. Miners eat into those waves of fees, and then the degens lose interest after a while. And we go back to a normal fee cycle, but over time it increases the amount of fees, transaction fees paid. So we go from 2% during a bear market to 10% during a bull market on average. And then over time, hopefully that encompasses the entire reward for Bitcoin miners. So we have like a safe security budget, quote unquote. That's what I see when I look at something like this.
Yep. And then the last chart, we included this in this newsletter this morning from Parker Merritt over at Coinmetrics. This is on the day of the halving on Saturday. We're barely halfway through 420, and op returns have already reached a new all-time high. So we had a 341,000 op returns versus the previous all-time high of 195,000 on April 21st, 2019. What's interesting is like this is exactly 5 years apart. So coincidence, but also kind of poetic. Let's see what's next. The next thing is Blockspace is going to be at Bitcoin Plus Plus. If you are watching this, we're going to be at BTC Plus Plus in Austin. Next week, we will be doing some interviews and covering that from the ground floor, from ground zero of the Bitcoin dev scene. Reach out to us if you want to chat or meet in Austin, Texas, Bitcoin Plus Plus. Lots going down there. Make sure to find us. What else might we have coming up, Will? We're going to be at in Nashville too, right?
Yeah, we'll be at Nashville. Before that, we'll be at Consensus in Austin at the end of the month. So we'll be in Austin twice. Ideally, putting together some sort of thing. We're talking with a few different companies to do either a happy hour or a larger gathering. So if you are interested, definitely just subscribe to our newsletter and you'll get best information about that. We've had some really awesome small events. Past that, it's just more Bitcoin content this week. We are doing a flashback on the mining pod to a podcast from 2021 with Alex Gladstein about like why does Bitcoin mining matter. So we're resurfacing that conversation. And then we'll do some Bitcoin mining stock stuff after that, a week later.
Great. And on Bitcoin Season 2, I'm interviewing the Wizards, Tyler, Whittle, and Rindell. We'll be doing a deep dive on Cat VM, the white paper, how it was made, and some of the interesting things that it could unlock. So I believe that's what we've got. We also remember we drop Gwart shows on the weekends on Sundays. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Otherwise, Will, I think we wrap it up here, right?
That's it. Blockspace Bytes, 10
Blockspace
minutes.
Bytes.
So if you missed it, go back and listen to the beginning. We went through things that you should know for Bitcoin.
Adios. See you on the internet.